employees is hoping, I'm sorry, let me go to this part because it's very important. We did a mock trial to practice muting the trustees because she didn't want the trustees to have a voice. And what she said, Samisha Williams said, we did a mock trial to practice muting the trustees. I didn't see that when I saw the video we watched earlier. I told you I couldn't hear it very clearly. I just heard her say mock trial. So I expounded on that. But they did a mock trial because we've looked at on this show, on the breakdown show, we've gone back and looked at the videos where the Dolton trustees were being muted during their Zoom meetings. And she was like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And Keith Freeman came on and was like, oh, make sure you mute yourself so we don't have any interruption. But Zoom is the kind of platform that has the bandwidth that can handle multiple speakers at once without crashing or glitching. And then later on, she said, oh, we said we would mute you because, we're trying to clear up the communication. And then during the actual in-person meetings, you see mics glitching. You see citizens' addresses getting fucked up because the mics aren't working. You see in the most recent meeting on March 4th, 2024, Trustee Tammy Brown, we could see it on YouTube because at first there was no sound. When I posted the link to the actual Village of Dolton meeting in my community tab, I said, surprise, ? No sound, period, and posted the link to the meeting. Okay, there was no sound. Then all of a sudden, in some of those meetings, all of a sudden there's sound when the right person gets up to speak to applaud Tiffany Henyard. But then all of a sudden there was sound in this meeting. And we also hear Trustee Tammy Brown say, excuse me. She has to interrupt the meeting and say, excuse me. There is still no sound to our residents who are watching online. And Tiffany Henyard doesn't ask anybody what's going on. Is there sound? She says, yes, they can. They can hear because she knows. Just like in that first meeting when there was an issue with the sound and Clerk Key was unable to be heard. She never said, hey guys, what's going on with Clerk Key? You could hear in the background, Dr. Nikita Cloud, I believe it was, say, you muted all the mics. You muted all the trustees. And you hear Keith Freeman in the background. They say, Clerk Key. They know exactly who it is. So you see this woman now confirming all of the things that we've seen and talked about and broken down. Go back and look at those videos where we broke down those meetings second by second. And we're able to see that she was manipulating the audio. Even when Andrew Holmes speaks, when they would do their Zoom meetings, Andrew Holmes would echo. And then Tiffany Henyard would do something to her device and he would stop echoing. Because she had him in two different tabs open at the same time. Because they had their own Zoom happening at the same time. So what Samisha Williams says is very important here. And that's why I wanted to come down and read the article. So I could get to the part, really, so I could get to this part. We did a mock trial to practice muting the trustees because she didn't want the trustees to have a voice. I had to screenshot that. Hold on. We did a mock trial to practice muting the trustees because she didn't want the trustees to have a voice. In her words, which I've heard Dr. Nikita Cloud mention this as well, she was at war with the trustees. Dr. Nikita Cloud said that when she and Tiffany Henyard met with Trustee Tammy Brown and Trustee Brittany Norwood about turning over the receipts, they met and had dinner on a Saturday evening. And when they left, Tiffany Henyard was like, oh yeah, we're going to turn over the receipts, no problem. When they got to the parking lot, Tiffany Henyard said to Dr. Nikita Cloud, don't you give them shit. We are at war. Man, I remember once my mama acted out in my house, so I made her go stay at a hotel. Because she was being disrespectful in my house. So I made her go stay at a hotel. And the next day, when it was time for her to catch her flight out, she called me. I was going to take her to the airport because that's the least I could do. And I told her, she was like, I want to make it right. You my daughter. And I was like, okay, well, then let's go see my counselor. So I scheduled an emergency session with my counselor, and we went and talked to my counselor. Shout outs to her. And my mama, I hired her when I was going through my divorce to kind of help me facilitate the emotions that come with leaving someone who's no good for you and dealing with society who doesn't understand. And so in that meeting, this woman already knew a lot about my relationship with my mother from our counseling sessions. When I tell you my mama put on the works, oh, I don't understand what's wrong. I'm so sorry for everything. I just want us to have a beautiful relationship. I just want us to be mother and daughter. Oh, I love you. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. When I tell you, we ended that session and I hadn't even paid the bill. We were walking down the hall back to the receptionist's office to the lobby. And we hadn't even closed, the door hadn't even clicked behind our juicy fat asses. And my mother said, don't you ever waste my time with no mess like this again. Don't you ever waste my time with no mess like this again. And I knew who the fuck I was dealing with, and we went and saw Christmas lights. I know these people. I'm familiar, with these people. We've heard Dr. Nikita Cloud, I think she told Anton Daniels that woman, Tiffany Henyard, who I won't call mayor until she calls herself mayor, on her On the Run podcast. I said it right. I said it right the first time, shit. Didn't know I did, but Freudian is a motherfucker. Google him, Tiffany Henyard. Google Freudian. Just guess how to spell it and then go from there. We saw her tell Anton Daniels that Tiffany Henyard left that meeting and said, don't give them shit because we are at war. Now, I don't know if Tamisha Williams and Nikita Cloud got together before this conversation, but they happen to use the same words. Just like when Tangenique Audronique Miller speaks, she happens to say the same things that Tiffany Henyard says. I'm going to say it again. We did a mock trial to practice muting the trustees because she didn't want the trustees to have a voice, Williams said. In her words, she was at war with the trustees. What happened to all the kumbaya and come together and let's do this right? She started this war, though, with her dishonesty, saying she was going to pay for her inauguration and slipping the bills to the village. Knowing there was a $5,000 cap on her spending, but having invoices that were just under $5,000, but more than one, so she was spending more than $5,000 without board approval. She did that. These were her first few meetings, June and July, saying that she was going to get her high school to pay $5,000 toward the fireworks, but never actually following that up. And then when the $5,000 didn't come through, saying the high school bailed on her. When they said in the first place they weren't going to do it, she said, I went back and watched the meetings. She said she was going to get them to do it. Just like she was going to get Jason House to sign those checks. But they did not give her $5,000 for those fireworks. So she threw it back on the village and lied on her high school. Let's continue. One of the former employees is hoping to get her job back from the lawsuit, while the other two are just hoping to move forward. I gave my piece on that. As they say,